Thank you, Mr. Anil Swarup, for joining us in this conversation. You're clearly the man of the moment, not only because of the arduous task you have done as former head of the CCI, the Cabinet Committee on Investments, but the very important ministry that you have just taken over as Secretary. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, first up, what investors really want to know is, what is the auction plan? You have a time limit set by the court. So what comes first, the coal mines that you are going to allocate to PSUs, and then to the power companies, the cement companies? Just lay out what you have in terms of a timeline and a process.
We have worked out a detailed timeline of a variety of activities that will ultimately lead to the handing over of coal mines to the new allottees, and this has to be done before 31st of March. We appear to be on track, and we should be able to do that well before 31st of March. In the first go, we are looking at 42 such coal mines where Supreme Court has allowed mining till 31st of March, so this has to happen before 31st of March. We've added another 32 set of mines to it, which are almost ready for mining. So in all, we have 74 mines, and if we are looking at some more mines so as to ensure that sufficient coal supplies become available to the power sector.
Okay. How will the process be? For the PSUs don't have to bid. They get the coal mines, right? They get allotted. They don't have to bid in the auctions.
There are two sets of activities. One would relate to allocation, where we'll allot it to either government entities or PSUs. That is allotment. And the other set would be for auction. This will be for all private sector entities, and even the government entities can also bid in that auction.
Okay. So what is the price at which the PSUs or the government departments get it? Is it free, or will it be at the same price as they are auctioned?
That is being determined. That is being the floor price, and the other price is being determined, and the allocation price will be determined, and they will have to pay that price. This is being determined by the government.
So it's not going free to the government departments, state government departments?
No, it's not going free.
Okay. Now you have...
Because there would be a situation where... Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, there could be a situation where a mine gets allocated to another state, from a state, so that state where the mine exists will be given a certain amount.
Okay.
So that's where the reserve price will come into play.
Okay. So by when will we know the reserve price for the various categories? And I assume the reserve price is different for power, cement and steel.
It will, see, power is a regulated sector, so obviously the situation and determination of price would be different as compared to the cement and steel, which is not a regulated sector, because the primary objective in the power sector is to ensure that the tariffs remain limited to the ones that we have right now. Tariffs should not be increased. That's the primary objective. So there the pricing would be different as compared to steel and aluminium.
Okay, so there will be basically two sets of auctions, one for power and one for non-power.
Yes, we will earmark the mines for a specific category, and that is how it will be auctioned.
Okay, and by when will we know the reserve price?
We are working on it. We have a time frame for each set of activity, including the reserve price, and well before we issue the tender, the price would be known.
Okay. The current, allottees of coal mines and who have now been, from whom the mines have been taken away or deallocated, they are to get compensated in some fashion for the investments made?
Yes. Yes. There is a valuation committee headed by the ex-CVC, and that committee is working on the valuation of those mines, and the amount that they determine will have to be paid by the next allocatee or allottee. Okay.
Well, one of the big worries for those who already have the mines and are working them is that they may end up winning somebody else's coal mine, and their own coal mines in which they have worked could be won by somebody else who is desperate for in-house coal. Can there be any swapping done thereafter? Something in the ordinance gave the impression that some kind of swapping is possible?
Yes. It is.
Can you elaborate? What
Swapping will be possible by that unit from, suppose a particular a person who wins a mine, who gets a mine, has allotment elsewhere, so he can swap that allotment with this allotment.
Okay. And do you?
But he can't swap it with others. Yeah.
Okay, he can only swap it with someone who has had that mine before.
Yeah.
All right. You are not envisaging any situation where, say, a cement company which has got a coal mine in-house or a steel company has more coal than it needs. It can't sell it to either a power company or to Coal India itself. That's not envisaged at all.
End use is sacrosanct.
Okay. Well, you know, somewhere in the ordinance you also gave the impression that at some point commercial sale will be allowed in the ordinance itself without any changes in the law. Are you therefore visualizing some kind of commercial sale or commercial mining of coal at all?
At this point in time, for the 74 blocks that are going to be put on auction, there is no commercial sale allowed. It is end use is predefined and they will be used for the purpose for which the mine is actually given. So that's very clear. Okay. Subsequent to this, after we are through with all this, there is a provision in the law now that the government, if it so desires, can consider exploitation of a mine on commercial basis by private sector. But that thought process will start once we are through with these 74 mines.
That can be done under the authority given to the government by the ordinance itself, or will that lead its way? Is there any thinking at all to scrap the Coal Nationalization Act and rethink it from ground zero?
These are two different concepts altogether.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
They're absolutely different, because denationalization would mean that we are trying to denationalize Coal India, where there is no such move.
Okay.
The Coal India remains where it is. Even when the sector gets opened, like it happened in the banking sector, State Bank of India was not denationalized. The nationalized banks were where they were. The sector was opened for other private sector banks to come in and start operations. Okay. A similar sort of thing can happen here, but government has still not given it a thought in that sense. An enabling clause has been included in the legislation so that in case it is thought, then you don't have to go ahead and amend the act all over again.
Okay. Therefore, should I understand that like in the banking sector, we are going to see a large part done by Coal India, but several commercial entities coming up for coal mining sometime soon? I mean, should we expect that in a year or less?
No, I cannot define a timeline for it, because it is basically an enabler. Now, the government will have to sit and see how and when, if and when that needs to be done. But without this amendment, the thought process would not also have started. So you enable that and then see what are the consequences, how it has to be done. So this will be discussed, and then you will be taken on that.
But have you all discussed that with the Law Ministry or with, there are enough legal entities?
We are too preoccupied with these 74 mines. We are a handful, actually.
No, I agree with you.
By 31st of March.
I agree with you, but that was that small, that oblique sale, commercial sale, was the small window which gave the impression that there can be, rather groundbreaking or, path-breaking changes in the sector.
See, try and understand, in a legislation, as I was telling some other channel also, in a legislation, you can't give a spade to somebody start digging the mine. Yes. You enable it in the legislation. That's what has been done. Now, the next step would be how to go about doing it. But right now, since we are really preoccupied with these 74 mines and implementation of Supreme Court order, we haven't been able to give it a thought any further. But certainly when we are through with it, we'll start giving it a thought.
Okay, so that is the thinking, that after 31st of March, by when your auction process would be over and done with, we could expect some serious amendments to the Coal Nationalization Act or some other legal changes.
No further so, try and understand.
No, I'm asking you whether a legal framework will be put in for commercial mining after your auctioning is over.
No, legal framework is already there.
Okay, so the ordinance will be enough.
No further legal framework is required. Ordinance is good enough because they have also amended the MMDR Act. So all legal provisions are there. So if and when it is decided that this has to be done, it can be done.
Okay, so a year down the line or 6 months down the line, the process will start whereby the coal sector will look something like the banking sector looks now, with perhaps 70% still with nationalized banks, but 30% with private sector banks.
I gave the example of banks just to explain that this is not denationalization. It may or may not go the way the banking sector has gone. Just to give an example as to why this is not denationalization, I gave the example of banks. Okay. This need not necessarily follow what has happened in the banks.
Okay. No, I take your point. But how do you see the prospects of Coal India's divestment itself? Does that definitely get over before March 31st? Because that is also to comply with a law of the land. that the owner shall not have more than 74%.
That's what the finance ministry is already doing. Process is underway for divestment to that extent.
For an investor in Coal India, it is very important to know when he buys the shares from the government whether Coal India will be the 99% owner of coal mines, or whether in a year's time or 2 years' time there will be a lot of commercial companies mining coal commercially and selling it. You'll have to give them some clarity. Can't you do that now?
No, I'm not sitting here to give comfort to an investor in Coal India. My job is not to give them comfort. My job is to say that coal production increases in India. Okay. The comfort or investor, you will have to ask somebody else.
No, I agree. But I guess before the divestment happens, some clarity will come from the government on these lines. Well, let me come to Coal India itself. We had the minister, and I guess that's the stated position of this ministry, that Coal India's output is going to be doubled in 5 years' time. That's a tall order, yes, because Coal India's output is actually increasing, yes, by 3 to 5%. And I have tracked that company, yes, for the longest time. How will this happen, sir? Doubling in, if it goes by the... yeah, please.
I agree with you that it's going to be tough, but it is doable. It is eminently doable. We are trying to identify such dimensions which will enable it to double its production. And hopefully within a month's time, we'll come up with a clear-cut strategy paper to see how it could be doubled in the next 5 years, which would include not only mining part, but also include a very critical part relating to evacuation. The problem in India is not of availability of coal, but primarily the problem is that of evacuation of coal, which leads to aspects like railway connectivity, you have the availability of rakes, the manner in which loading and unloading happens. There are a variety of aspects that are being looked into to work out a clear-cut strategy related to each action point to determine whether we can reach $1 billion, and we are hopeful a billion metric tons. Hopefully we should be able to reach by 2019.
Okay, actually, that was going to be my next question, that it's evacuation of coal that is the bigger problem. Has any blueprint or any steps been thought through in that process? Are you talking to railways? Are you planning rail lines and rakes in that fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. See, let me give you an example. Though, of course, the strategy paper will incorporate more details, but let me give you an example of 3 critical railway lines, one each in Odisha, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh,
yes,
which when they are fully operational will add evacuation to the tune of around 200 million tons. So if our production is around 500 and we are thinking in terms of adding through these 3 railway lines, and I was in Bhubaneswar day before yesterday, and it was very evident that at least the railway line in Odisha will be operational by December 2017, much before 2019 that we are talking of. So there is a lot of focus, interaction with the railways. We are discussing with the state governments to resolve the issues. I did that as head of the PMG, because even then I felt that these 3 railway lines are critical. Similarly, we are looking at various other aspects. We are planning to more than double the rakes that are available. Today, there are about 200 rakes that are being used for evacuating coal. We are looking at adding another 250 rakes to that in the next few years. So all this will help evacuate coal from the pitheads.
No, actually, I was going to quote you something which you told us, sir, in your previous avatar about the rail links in Jharkhand, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh. 2019 is a rather long-term framework. Can you give us something more, near term in the next 1 year or 2 years? How much are you expecting by way of both evacuation as well as output for Coal India?
Okay. Give me a month's time to give you an exact breakup, which would be year-wise, because right now we are aiming for that. We are working out on the breakup, and not only are we working out on the breakup, we will relate each output to a particular set of activity and see how it impacts the output.
Okay.
We'll be able to tell you that.